Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel, Anna Bella, and today I'm finally reviewing the Morbius film. I have seen it at the Odeon Cinema, so now I'm going to review it. It has been a long time since we've actually had a decent vampire movie to review, and this one is uniquely special because these vampires are pseudo-scientific vampires. They are not gothic horror vampires, even though they use certain tropes of gothic horror because they are from Marvel Comics. So let us dive into Morbius. So, as you can see, we've moved inside because I got cold. Moving swiftly on from that to the review. Yes, we've got Angel there and also Matt Smith there, but moving swiftly on to the review. Pacing. It's always a difficulty in origin stories to get the pacing right. There were many brilliant things in this movie. There were also some things that could have been done better, but origin stories are difficult because what do you pick? What do you leave out? Do you have enough time for the final battle at the end, or is it rushed? Do you make the most of your villain? Because the first villain that your hero/anti-hero in Morbius's case faces is usually a really personal one and one that will stay with them throughout their journey. So, do you defeat them in the first film or do you wait? And we all know that the Spiderman multiverse is coming, so Marvel and Sony, or however you wish to pronounce it, have got to get there quite quickly. So, pacing. We started off in Costa Rica, then we went 25 years earlier in Greece, and then we ended up in New York. And it was really interesting, actually, Michael Morbius's mentor's character and how he used these two boys. And I do say used these two boys because clearly he'd been keeping Michael alive because he was gifted. So the original Milo that was next to him must have died when Michael Morbius was, say, 3 or 4. And that child's death had stuck with him because I suspect it was the first one he'd seen. Conveniently for both Lucius Crown or Milo and even Michael Morbius, there were no parents, so the parents had clearly gone, though they'd left Lucius enough money to keep him in the lap of luxury even though he was dying. And he somehow managed to have a chauffeur to bring him to Michael Morbius's guardian/doctor. And it was interesting. I suspect that Michael Morbius's guardian doctor used Lucius's money that he was clearly overpaying for his care to fund Michael's scholarship, even though suddenly he was like, oh, you're going to go to a gifted school and they're going to be able to pay for your care. It was like, no, the gifted school are going to give him the scholarship. You're going to make up the extra and make sure that Michael Morbius is medically supported so that you can concentrate all of your time on Lucius, who's paying for all of this. So you've sort of like got two golden gooses and you want to make sure that Michael is the one that you're going to really push because you want to give him a life outside the medical wards being a patient. But Lucius Crown, you've got to wrap up in cotton wool because he's the moneymaker. And it's interesting that both Michael and his doctor/carer refer to him as Milo, which means that they didn't recognise Lucius as an individual person with his own wants and needs. And spoiler alert, it's very telling that when Lucius is saying, you wouldn't kill Milo at the end, and it's only then that Michael acknowledges Lucius's real name is Lucius. He does not call him Milo. And that is significant because Michael, by the time Lucius arrived, Michael is old enough. He's sort of like 12, 11. He's old enough to understand that Lucius is not Milo. And in fact, Lucius does correct him because he's about, 8 or 9 when he arrives. And the thing is they only have the summer holidays and the Easter holidays and the Christmas holidays together as a pair, which means that Michael had a great, wonderful time because he got to go to school and his healthcare was supported through going to school at his gifted school. Lucius got to stay at the hospital and be a patient, and one assumes he was doing, he had tutoring to get his diploma, but it wasn't as good as what Michael got because Michael actually got to go into a classroom. Lucius did not, and I suspect that there was a great disadvantage in that way. Even though as an adult Lucius lived in a lush palace, he was still cushioned, whereas Michael actually got to have a public life. And that's significant going forward. Anyway, I've babbled far too much on that because it does affect the fact that we didn't see a lot of that. And it's interesting who Michael chooses to employ. He chooses to employ a woman, and it's a woman of colour. And that is really interesting because he recognises the struggle that that person's gone through. People like Lucius, who have all the money and everything, his illness is the struggle, so the only thing that he's trying to do is to prolong his life so that he's able to live in luxury and fund stuff. The only reason he is funding Michael Morbius's research is selfishly because it's going to help him as well as helping his brother. So there's a lot of stuff crackling off there. Anyway, moving on, we've spent too much time on that. Speaking of my own pacing problem, the film also had a pacing problem, and it also had, yes, Michael Morbius is a scientist, so we had some lovely technobabble, and I haven't seen technobabble done brilliantly in a movie until this one. And also we had Jared Leto's love of computers, because we had that scene where he's putting a computer together. Anyway, moving swiftly on from that. Yes, we had the goofy male body dance scenes, though Jared Leto's was near pipes, and he wasn't dancing, he was the brooding vampire with steam. Yes, that's worth paying money for. And then we had Matt Smith's lovely goofball happy dance, like, yay, I'm happy I can dress myself and I'm not in pain. I'm going to do a goofy dance. Yay! While being shirtless, it's always a plus. Anyway, yes, I did say there was positives. Those are two of them, though not main two. I'm coming on to the real positives, the action sequences. OMG! Excellent action sequences, reminded me very much of The Matrix and Van Helsing, weirdly enough, with the flight. I'm loving the fact we've got flying vampires, even though they're pseudoscience ones, which is kind of cool. So we have all the pluses of a vampire, but no, the burning flames, we can walk in the daylight, we don't sort of freak out at crucifixes or anything like that, so that's awesome. And the action sequences were beautifully done, and the use of bullet time, but also the use of disintegrationness. I'm loving the fact that you've got the battle for the primal stuff crackling off between the scientific controlled stuff, and I think one of the reasons that Michael Morbius is, one, able to resist is the fact that he's had all this learning and he understands cognitively it, whereas poor old Lucius, he has been denied, so he feels that he's got a right to it, and that is interesting to play out between the two characters as well. Fight sequence is brilliant. I'm loving the fact that you could still see the monster within them as they fought, so you didn't see and then you did. Love that, absolutely love that. Reminded me very much of Buffy and Angel, where like he would transform and you'd see the demon and then it would go back in. Loved it. Morbius used that to great effect for both Lucius's character and Michael Morbius. Loved it. The vampires were very well done, very well constructed, very well. Special effects, awesome. Action sequences, awesome. Use of vampire bats, great. And it's actually quite interesting because how is Michael Morbius able to control these bats? Because we had that scene in Costa Rica where he cut himself and you just sort of think, is he collecting these bats or is he becoming like the king of bats? And is that what made him a vampire? No, it turns out to be a serum, which is really confusing because what was all that cut about with the bats? Is that the reason why when he went into that bat tunnel-y thing, they were able to come on him and he was able to be in tune with them? Because notice Milo Lucius never got that. If he went into that tunnel with the bats, would they eat him even though he was one of them? That was a really interesting point, and I really wanted to see him do that. And it was interesting that Michael Morbius got the bats to do his dirty work because he couldn't do it. Yes, he did do the serum at the end, but he got the bats to pin him down, which is interesting because he used his natural impulses to do that. And it was interesting that when he was dying, he was like, oh no, ethically, I can't fall in love with my fellow doctor. It just wouldn't be right. But suddenly we are all healthy and the natural biology takes over and says, yeah, I'm going to do that because the beast within. Except it's not a beast really, it's an animal, so it's a natural instinct. So I don't believe that these are monsters or beasts. I believe that these are animalistic impulses that are natural, that are being triggered, because we're in pseudo-vampire land. We're not in a supernatural vampire, we are pseudo-scientific vampires. Yes, it's a subtle difference. Is it? Really? Not really. Get over yourself. Loved it. Loved the physical effects, said that. Loved the funky dancing. It was awesome. Out of 5, I'm going to give it a 4 because there were some pacing problems, but I really enjoyed it. Well, I've finished my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment and subscribe, and don't forget to click the little notification bell to keep up with my latest videos. Thank you for the support. We hope you are staying safe wherever you are in the world. Bye!